Students, welcome to today's EVS 1 class. So we are in chapter birds, and today we are going to study about the beaks and their types. So and how the functions, how the beaks varies according to the functions of a specific bird. So today's learning outcome is, at the end of today's class you will be able to relate the types of beaks with their functions for a specific bird. So these are the keywords: broad, flat, curved, pointed, chisel, hooked. So basically these are the type of or the structure of beaks in a bird. So these keywords please try to remember. So let's start today's class. So before I start today's class, just have a look on these pictures and just see how the beaks are different from each other. If you observe the beaks, they are quite different from each other. If you see the beak of this eagle, it is hooked. Then the duck, it is broad and flat. Then pigeon, they are quite short in length. And few more birds we have. Okay, so woodpecker, you can see. So there is some kind of difference among the beaks. So we'll study the properties and their functions one by one now. So let's start. So first of all, let us talk about broad flat beak. So birds like ducks, as you can see here, the beak is quite broad and flat. They're broad and flat, and we can also see there are holes on either side of these beaks. So birds like ducks and swans have broad and flat beaks. There are tiny holes on either sides of the beak. So this is how the beak of the duck looks like. So it is broad and flat. They also have holes in their beaks, you can see here. So this is basically to scoop out the water, because they generally find their food in what type of soil. They generally find their food in the muddy waters, and so they need to scoop out the water. So they generally remove the water through these holes. So this is how they get their food. So they will take in the food, and then they will simply scoop out the water through these holes. So ducks, they have broad flat beak. Then next type of beak is strong and curved beak. So you can see here, in case of parrot, the beak is strong, and they are also curved. You can see there is a curve in this beak. So how this type of beaks help the parrots? It helps them to crack open nuts or seeds and scoop out the pulp of fruits. So it helps them basically to crack the nuts because they generally rely on nuts and other such foods. So they have strong curved beaks. So remember the examples: parrots have strong curved beaks. Then the next type is short, hard and pointed beak. So birds like sparrows, they have short, hard and pointed beaks. You can see the length of the beak is quite short compared to the other birds, and it is pointed in nature. So they are also hard, so they can break things or crush things easily. So they have short, so the length is short, hard and also pointed beak. So they pick up seeds and worms easily and crush them with their beaks. So since their beaks are quite hard, they can easily crush seeds. So they pick up seeds and worms easily and crush them with their beaks. Also some other birds which have the similar type of beaks are pigeons and peacocks. So pigeons and peacocks also have similar types of beaks. So remember these examples. So along with the sparrow, pigeons and peacocks also have this similar type of beaks. Then long chisel-like beak. Now woodpeckers have long chisel-like beaks. Now chisel is a tool that is basically used by carpenters to cut the wood. So similarly woodpeckers, so you can relate them. Now chisel is a tool that is generally carried by whom? Carpenters, to cut the wood. So similarly you can relate directly. Chisel like means, it is examples you can easily remember, it is woodpeckers. Since chisel is taken by carpenters to cut the wood, in the same way, since the nature of the beak is what? Chisel-like. So chisel-like means it will be for which bird? For woodpecker. So woodpeckers generally have long chisel-like beaks to tap the bark of a tree. They make holes in tree trunks in search of insects. So because of the nature of their beaks, since it is chisel-like, they can easily make holes in the tree trunks. So this helps them to get the insects which are present in the bark of the trees or in the inside the bark of the trees. Yes. So this is how they get their food. Then we have long, broad, pointed beak. Now kingfishers have long, broad and pointed beaks. The beak is used to pick up fish from the water. So you can see they have long as well as broad. They have long, the length is long, and also they have broad and pointed beak. So this helps them to get the fish from the water. Then we have sharp, hooked, strong beak. Now sharp and hooked. So as you can see in case of eagle, now you can see if you notice the beak, it is just like a hook. It is just like a hook. And eagles, also hawks, have sharp, hooked and strong beaks so that they can easily tear the flesh. So they are generally what type of birds? They are flesh eating birds. So they need to tear the flesh, and so this type of beaks help them to tear the flesh. As you can see, once again it is hooked shaped. They eat rats, lizards, snakes, frogs, rabbits and even small birds. So since they mainly rely on what? Flesh, they need to tear the flesh, and so they have this type of beaks. Then we have thin, long, pointed beak. So this is hummingbirds. The beaks of birds like hummingbirds are thin, long, pointed. They help to suck nectar from the flowers. So they are thin and long, since it's just like a tube or syringe, we can say, so that they can suck the nectar from the flowers. They help to suck the nectar from the flowers. The hummingbird does not sit on a flower when feeding, so they keep flying around that flower and they suck the nectar from the flower with the help of their long, thin, pointed beak. So it is just like a syringe or a small tube through which they can suck in the nectar. So it hovers above the flower like a helicopter and dips its long beak into the flower. So just like a tube or syringe, they insert it into the flower and then they get the nectar from the flower. So these are some of the different types of beaks which you have studied today. In the next class we'll discuss about the types of feet of different birds. So before we end up, just questions for the day. Now tell me, what type of beak does a woodpecker have? Just reflect on the diagrams which we have covered, which you have seen the pictures, and then just give the answer. Then the second question, name a bird that has long chisel-like beak. So please try to answer these two questions, and we will discuss the answer in the next class. So that's all for today's class, my dear students. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.